I didn't know anything about real estate. People now come to me asking for advice, not just in marketing, in real estate, but in real estate in general.
I'll show you how podcasting made that happen.
The Icons of Real Estate podcast, the flagship show of the #1 real estate podcast network, where real estate agents come to grow. Whether you're looking to scale your business, expand your network, or stay sharp with insider knowledge, you found your go-to daily dose of real estate gold. Our hosts sit down with the industry's top producers and rising stars, sharing raw stories, winning strategies, and the real lessons that create icons. With over 500 episodes and 70-plus shows in our network, we're not just another podcast. We're your competitive edge in real estate. Tune in, level up. Become an icon of real estate.
Hello, guys, and welcome to a special episode of the Icons of Real Estate podcast. And no, today we're not going to have a guest. Sorry to disappoint or to surprise you. This will be the first episode ever that we'll do it solo. All right. So after 616 episodes, we felt there was a need, for a little, throwback, a little rundown of where we've been, where we are now, and, where we want to be, because it's been some journey. So today I want to take you a little bit behind the scenes with the Icons of Real Estate to tell a little bit about us, tell a little bit about the story and what are we really doing here. So after 300 hours of episodes, we launched the first episode back in 2022 in the beginning of the year. So we're going on more than 3 years of episodes here. We've had multiple hosts and hundreds and hundreds of guests, exactly 616 guests. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know anything about real estate. People now come to me asking for advice, not just in marketing, in real estate, but in real estate in general. So it really taught me a lot throughout these years and learning everything that all of the genius real estate agents and top rock stars and coaches and investors and even industry partners that came to our show helped me understand, right? I remember it was even the first episode, one of the first episodes that I recorded was about underwriting a multifamily property. And I was like, what is underwriting and what is multifamily? And so right now I can consider myself, proficient in the real estate industry. It's with that we help, real estate agents every day, not just in educating them through the Icons of Real Estate podcast, but through other things that I can share with you over the course of this episode, right? So let me tell you the story, all right? It all starts with the story. And we weren't always Icons of Real Estate. And so we used to be an SEO agency, right? So we would optimize and revitalize websites for real estate agents. And we were kind of breaking into a barrier that, most agencies, most marketing agencies feel when they're talking to a niche industry that, they felt like outsiders, right? They're trying to push in. It's like, give me some attention. And it's like, why should I listen to you and not to the other 50 people that are on my phone? And we wanted to do something that it would provide value to the industry so people could see us as actually part of the industry. We started the podcast with that intent of, creating genuine content, inviting people that don't always have the opportunity to share their mind. So it's not like we only have the people that have more than 10,000 followers on Instagram. No, we're going for all of the top producers, even if their social presence or web presence wasn't that good, right? And that's what brought us every single nugget on each episode, because we would focus on the genius of the guest every time they would come on. Okay. And we started this, and as at the same time, we're building these relationships, as we started helping some of our guests as well with their website, as we show them that we could do. And I've always had a bigger vision into creating something more accessible than obviously, SEO, which was the religion that we were preaching at the time. And we're running our Icons of Real Estate podcast for a while now. I think we're already within the first year. And we had this guest by the name of Matthias Baker. is a probate realtor in the Beverly Hills market. And he came to me like, hey, Tomás, like, I love what you're doing with the SEO. It's not something that I can actually afford right now, but I love the experience on the podcast. Like, I've been through some podcasts and like your podcast was the best experience, best communication, best content, best promotional materials. And I was like, okay, thank you, Matthias, but what is a compliment like that's going to do for me, right? If you're not going to buy my services. But that was when Matthias had an idea that he was the pioneer of actually our whole company that we are today. That he was like, hey, Tomás, could you do the same for me? I was like, oh, hang on a second. What do you mean do the same for you? Like, produce your podcast? Like, we don't do that. Funny enough, we even started our own podcast outsourcing to a different company. That's how far away from podcast production we were. And Matthias said, yeah, I don't mind being a lab rat. Just put an offer together. And if it's decent, we'll get it started. That's what I did. And I mean, we only put decent offers together, right? At least we try to. So Matthias said yes immediately. And we run his podcast. At the same time, we're doing our SEO business. All right. And we had one podcast that we were producing outside of Icons of Real Estate. And that was the Probate Realtor Show, hosted by Matthias Baker. We run that podcast for a full year because we wanted to try different things. We want to make sure that he's actually working a working framework, right? So we want to make sure it was a working framework, right? Not just something that is enriching someone's vanity or someone's ego, but it's actually something that is helping their business grow. And that's exactly what happened. So Matthias, in the beginning, when he started his podcast, he told me like, I'm hitting a ceiling. Like, I've been doing 20 million for the past 3 years. Of course, 20 million is great. But for someone ambitious as Matthias, if you're not growing, something's wrong in your business, right? And within the podcast, we use the podcast not just to position himself as the number one probate realtor in Beverly Hills and in California, but we use the podcast to also put him in contact with his preferred partners that he would get referrals from, right? These were, lawyers, title representatives, other real estate agents. And it was from that relationships that Matthias was building that actually had referrals that he converted into business, all right? That year, he ended up the year with 25 million in volume. All right. It was the first year after 3 years that he increased his production. And that was all due to the podcast. So I was like, hey, okay, now this is something that works. All right. So let's try to add one more, right? Let's add, and then we added one more, and let's add 3 more, 4 more, 5 more. And then we're on a roll. We started again our second ever podcast, still running today, as the Probate Realtor is still running today. After more than 2 years, is the Real Estate Riches with Kathy Burns. Then our third podcast was the Real Moms with Chase Spitz. And we started having this podcast in different cities, different states, from California to North Carolina to Nebraska. And I was like, okay, we're on to something here. Podcasting is a very viable venture for real estates to grow their business. And this is exactly what we started to preach. So let me try to explain how the podcast can actually actively help a real estate agent grow its business, okay? And I'll try to keep it short as well, all right? So we see the podcast growth in 2 avenues. One is the content, all right? And the other avenue is the relationships, okay? Let's start with the content. So the content is what you can see, right? It's what's above the line. It's what everyone already thinks that podcasts can do for you. So it's basically, positioning you as an authority in your market. It goes to say, if you have a podcast about something, like, you better be a genius at it. Like, if I know nothing about surf, like, I'm not going to have a podcast about surf, right? Whereas if you have a friend that has a podcast about pottery, you better be damn sure that he's quite a genius at pottery, right? And that goes the same with real estate. It also helps you with, obviously, like, diversification in terms of the content. You see a lot of real estate agents with uniformized content. It's always the same thing, like open house, just listed, just closed. And some of them, they even actually have the same posts with the market updates and quote cards that don't really convert to anything. Having a podcast in your market can really be a game changer because you're telling people that you're taking your brand seriously. right? And not just having the shortcuts like anyone else. Then it works also as a nurture campaign, right? So you know that you're obviously keeping in touch, I hope, with your list, being a 100 size list or a 5,000 size list. It's always good to keep in touch, right? And you have the traditional, happy Thanksgiving, and how's the baby, so on and so on. But with the podcast, it's a weekly reminder that you're in business and ready to do business. Okay. So you're reminding people constantly that you're active as a real estate agent and you're providing value to the community. More to say that throughout the content that you create with your podcast, you're creating a knowledge base as well. So even, for example, if you have an episode that you decide to talk about, for example, home insurance, right? The next time a lead or a potential client or even a client asks you a question about insurance, instead of just asking ChatGPT to reply to it or even reply with your own audacity, you can reply in your own way, but then kind of add as an attachment, like, by the way, I recorded an episode a few months ago talking exactly about this. I feel like that you're going to find it really valuable. What do you think, like, the lead is going to think when they see that come in? Is that they see, man, like, this guy, he knows his stuff, like, he's ready for it, and they're not going to have any second thoughts about, like, working with you. Okay. So that's all throughout the content. There are a few myths that we already uncovered in the world of podcasting. So you don't have to be Joe Rogan to have the best podcast in your city. Okay. Don't even worry if you never had any experience in podcasting before. There's a big learning curve around it, obviously, as you're getting comfortable, as you're getting confident around it. But more importantly, you don't have to be Joe Rogan to have the best real estate podcast in your city. You can actually go check right now, even while you're listening to this episode, just go type the name of your city and then put, real estate podcast and see what's the competition there. Even if we're talking about like big cities, there'll be some competition there, but you'll see there won't be that much. We're talking about like, there's still an untapped market for this. And that's why like we're starting podcasts every single week. Okay. In multiple different cities, sometimes in cities that they didn't have a podcast before. So if you type in your city, and if you live in a smaller city, for example, and you type in your city in real estate podcast, and you see there isn't one, just by you having a podcast, as much as it's bad content, and I hope it's not bad content, but as much as it is not going into the standards of a high quality podcast, just by having it, you'll have the number one real estate podcast in your city. Okay. And that's really powerful because people, they will perceive you as the best real estate agent in your city as well. Right. The best known always beat the best. Right? And it was even what happened with Matthias is the podcast actually went to kind of a situation that we were not expecting in a good way. So we wanted him to have the best probate realtor podcast in in Los Angeles. That was our goal. He ended up having the best probate realtor podcast in the whole California. And bigger than that, he ended up having the best probate realtor podcast, probate real estate podcast in the whole United States. All right. Literally, if you search probate real estate podcast, his podcast is the first one to come up. His clients now, they're in leads that are approaching him thinking that Matthias is the best probate realtor in the US. I mean, he's a great guy. And Matthias, sorry, if you're listening to this, you're a great guy. But, statistics shows that there might be one that can pull a better service, right? But, Matthias is the one out there with the podcast. So in the lead's eyes, in the client's eyes, he's the best probate realtor in the US. And as Matthias is this, you can also be considered the best real estate agent in your city by having the best real estate podcast in your city. So this is all with the content that through the first avenue, right? And this is just one avenue of growth that can do for your business. Now, going to the second avenue, that's with the relationship building. So it's really hard nowadays where the attention span of human beings are smaller than with clownfish. It's really hard to, start new relationships in a genuine way. We've all tried, LinkedIn outreach doesn't really work, and cold calling is effective until a certain limit that you want to, stay professional as well. So podcast has been, we've been building this framework around it, creating relationships where they would never been. I work remotely. I live remotely throughout the Icons of Real Estate lifespan. I've lived in Vietnam, Spain, Brazil, Portugal, and Argentina, and I've built relationships through podcasting with real estate agents in the US. All right, so it is very possible. So by having that second avenue of growth, you can mimic your potential guest, your ideal guest, as your ideal partner, right? And by partner, it can have different meanings depending on what you want to accomplish. If, for example, if you're a real estate agent looking to leverage your referrals, you would be having some, for example, industry partners as guests on your podcast, right? Title reps, home insurance, contractors, with realtors, because those are the people that if you get in bed with, they're going to send you business as you're sending business to them. Right? If, for example, you're an investor and you're looking to raise some capital, right? Like you can have some investors with already great loads of experience on similar deals that you're currently doing right now. And you can use the podcast as a segue to start a relationship to then evidently show them the project that you have in your hands. So by doing this, we've already had some actually pretty solid success cases that people use podcasts to then generate referrals that then turn into deals. All right, we're talking about deals in your pocket. There was even one. We can even add a little tag here on the podcast so you can take a look at the story more in detail. But it happened with Shay Spitz in Nebraska. She was recording her first episodes, and she's from Columbus, Nebraska. She was interviewing someone which is a little bit far away from Columbus. And at the time, she had a referral to give to someone from Columbus. And she chose Shay because of the experience she had on the podcast, and that, she saw Shay as obviously like a good professional. That referral ended up being a land development deal with more than 70 acres of land that ended up housing. I think it was more than 300 doors. All right, 300 doors separated between short-term housing, residential, and commercial. All right, and that deal was all supervised by Shay Spitz, and all because she interviewed the guests on the podcast. Okay, so podcasts, we've been building our framework that it can actually help you grow your business. Then as we're growing, producing more podcasts here, podcasts there. We have podcasts in almost every single state. We still have a lot of room to grow because there is a lot of cities to still have podcasts on, and a lot of real estate agents that still need their podcasts produced, right? And if you're one of them, you can jump on our website at iconsofrealestate.com and find a little bit more about us. But we were finding there was another necessity that people are having in our industry, which is not just by producing the podcast, but also guesting on more podcasts. And we've always had a good relationship with podcast booking agencies, how they are called, because we coordinated with them to have guests for our own podcast and for our own Icons of Real Estate podcast. We had a look at their prices and all, and their offer, and it was like daunting. We're talking about they were charging, $200, $300 for every single episode they would be a guest on. I was like, that ain't right. That ain't right. Like, first of all, we're doing it for free for people. But we decided, what if we build a platform around our network, which is already around, 80 podcasts and growing every single day. What if we build a platform around our network that we're able to connect hosts and guests? And that's where the Hub came in. So the Hub is the ultimate podcast guesting platform in real estate. We're focusing just in real estate. So if you're a real estate agent and you're looking, and even if you're not ready to start your own podcast yet, and you're ready to dip in the water of guesting on some podcasts, the Hub is the right place for you. Okay. So you can go out there. It's completely free just to have a look. Then we have a few packages for you to look over, but it's a great place to start and to start working on your brand. Someone that has been to 20 podcasts about real estate or a few other podcasts about even community in your own market has an authority that has no comparison to someone that didn't. All right. Not just authority around the general public, authority around Google. Google and SEO, they'll prioritize how many times your name shows up in different platforms and in different formats. Okay, podcast being one of them. So based on this, like what we're currently doing now is, so we're helping with podcast production, and if you're ready to launch your own podcast, you can talk to us. If you want to guest on podcasts, you can do the same and talk to us. We'll guide you on the right direction, straight to the hub. All right. If you go on our website, you'll be able to see everything that we have to show. And we've been taking the Icons of Real Estate everywhere. So I told you that, we do remotely, but we've been invited to events before. I've been to events some in Europe, in Barcelona, in Lisbon, but also some in the US, in Miami, Orlando, Las Vegas. It came to the fact that I was even recognized on the street by someone that listened to the podcast. Okay. And I didn't know that someone. I was like, oh, am I a celebrity? Did I make it? I mean, it did only happen once, but it did, so you got to let me have that win. But we're not stopping here. We have very big plans for growth. One of the things that we're adding on value is through masterclasses that we're hosting every single month. And they go from, talking about AI to talk about, storytelling, talk about podcasting, talk about Canva, LinkedIn, everything, all the tools that the real estate agent needs to be able to grow its business. I started hosting the masterclass myself, but there's a lot of geniuses out there that can do the masterclass better than I do. So we've been inviting some. And I want to, invite for anyone listening here that you might have something to share with our community, and you want to host a masterclass with us, please also get in touch, because we'd love to have you help on. Okay. So here we are at Icons on a mission to make podcasting accessible in the real estate industry and to be seen as an actual growth vehicle. All right. Nothing to do with vanity, nothing to do with ego feeding type of marketing strategies that there are a lot out there. We only do podcasting that can help you grow your business. Okay. So if you want to start your journey, even through guesting, Icons Real Estate is now opening its door to new guests. We have changed our production role. Even we're shooting in 4K, editing our podcast in a much more professional way. If you want to be a guest on our podcast, also, again, get in touch with us. All right. If you have a story to share, expertise in real estate, in any niche in real estate, and you want to amplify your brand, we'd love to have you on our podcast. We started from nothing to build an authority brand in real estate that is the Icons of real estate. We keep growing and we will continue growing. And thank you for everyone listening right now. Thank you for everyone that has been a part of the journey. I'm not going to name out all the 616 guests that we have, but I want to thank every single guest that came in and was a part of the Icons of Real Estate. And I want to thank you as well for the future participation that you will have on our growth. All right. See you guys. We'll see you next episode. We might have a guest for you.
Loved what you heard? Subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow agents. It helps more agents find the show and tells us what you want more of. And hey, want to get featured on multiple podcasts like Icons, or even find epic guests for your podcast? Check out The Hub, the ultimate guesting platform in real estate. Link in the description. Catch you next time. Keep crushing it out there.